The afternoon sun, warm and golden, streamed through the tall windows of Graceland, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air like tiny silent snowflakes. Elvis Presley, dressed in a silk robe that shimmered with an almost otherworldly glow, was sprawled on the plush carpet of the living room, a bowl of popcorn balanced precariously on his chest. His eyes, usually alight with a mischievous spark or a soulful depth, were currently fixated on the television screen. On the screen, a lone figure in a crisp white G moved with astonishing speed and precision, delivering powerful kicks and sharp, focused punches. It was a classic martial arts movie, one of Elvis's favorites, causing the discipline and artistry of karate. Elvis himself was no stranger to martial arts. He had been practicing for years, finding solace and a unique form of expression in its movements. He loved the way it centered him, calmed the storm that often raged inside his famous mind. It was a secret language his body spoke, a powerful whisper in the chaos of his life. Beside him, snuggled comfortably against his hip, lay Chief, a magnificent golden retriever with fur the color of honey and eyes that held an uncanny intelligence. Chief wasn't just a pet. He was family, a furry shadow, a silent confidant. He was usually content to snooze through Elvis's movie marathons, occasionally lifting his head for a curious sniff at the popcorn or a soft sigh of contentment. But today, something was different. As the hero on the screen let out a guttural ki, a sharp, powerful yell that punctuated a decisive blow, Elvis instinctively mimicked the sound, a low hoo-yah, escaping his lips. Chief, startled by the sudden noise, lifted his head, his ears perked, and looked at Elvis with an expression that was a comical blend of concern and confusion. Elvis chuckled, reaching down to scratch Chief behind the ears. "Don't worry, boy, just practicing. That's what they call a ki, Chief. It's like putting all your energy into one big shout." Chief responded with a soft whine, then nudged Elvis's hand with his wet nose, clearly asking for more attention. Elvis obliged, ruffling his thick fur. But as his fingers worked their way through Chief's coat, an idea, a truly magnificent and utterly bonkers idea, began to bloom in his mind. He looked from the TV screen where the karate master was now bowing deeply to Chief, who was staring up at him with an earnest, devoted gaze. Chief was a smart dog, incredibly loyal and eager to please. He could fetch a newspaper rollover on command, and even pretend to be asleep when Elvis sang him a lullaby, though Elvis suspected Chief was just humoring him on that one. But could he learn karate? The thought was so absurd, so wonderfully ridiculous, that Elvis found himself grinning. It was the kind of idea that only truly came to him in the quiet moments at Graceland, away from the flashing lights and roaring crowds. An idea born of a unique blend of boredom, boundless energy, and an unshakable belief that anything was possible, especially when it involved his beloved animals. "Chief," Elvis said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if sharing a top-secret plan. "What do you say, boy? You think you could be a karate dog?" Chief, as if understanding the gravity of the question, tilted his head, his floppy ears flopping with the motion. He let out a soft woof, a sound that Elvis interpreted as something akin to, "Tell me more, King." Elvis pushed himself up the popcorn bowl, sliding precariously to the floor, fortunately landing right side up. He stood adopting a wide-bound stance, mirroring the karate master on the screen. He stretched his arms out, palms open, then snapped them back to his sides like a spring recoiling. "See, Chief? This is a ready stance, always prepared, always focused." Chief watched him, his tail giving a tentative, questioning wag. Then, as if to humor his human, he stretched out his front paws, lowering his chest to the ground in a classic doggy play bow. It wasn't quite a ready stance, but it was certainly a ready for fun stance. Elvis laughed. "Close, boy, real close. But it's more about balance, about controlling your energy. Imagine you're a mighty oak rooted to the ground, but also ready to sway with the wind. He tried to demonstrate, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. His movements fluid and precise. Chief, meanwhile, decided this looked like an excellent invitation to wrestle. He sprang up, tail wagging furiously, and pounced on Elvis's leg, nudging him playfully. Elvis stumbled, barely catching his balance, and laughed again. A deep, joyful sound that filled the room. "Whoa there, Chief. Easy, big fella. That's not quite a block, but it's certainly a strong tackle." Elvis knelt, wrapping his arms around Chief's neck, burying his face in the soft fur. The dog responded by licking his face with enthusiastic devotion. Image of Chief in a tiny GIE attempting to block a phantom kick or perform a perfect roundhouse wag brought a fresh wave of amusement to Elvis. It was completely ridiculous, absolutely illogical, and yet it felt right. It felt like exactly the kind of whimsical, heartwarming adventure he needed. He imagined the headlines: Elvis's canine karate master, or maybe the king's kicking canine. The thought alone was enough to fuel his enthusiasm. "All right, boy," Elvis said, pulling back slightly to look into Chief's warm brown eyes. "This is it. We're gonna do this, you and me. We're gonna master the art of canine karate. What do you say? Ready to become a black belt, Chief?" Chief responded with a happy bark, a sound that resonated with pure, unadulterated excitement. He wagged his tail so hard his whole body wiggled. "It didn't sound like a yes, King. I understand the profound implications of martial arts training." It sounded more like, "Yes, whatever you're talking about, it sounds fun and it involves you, so I'm in." Elvis grinned, a plan already forming in his mind. He would start with the basics: stances, focus, discipline, and treats. Lots and lots of treats. He knew it wouldn't be easies. Chief wasn't exactly known for his unwavering attention span, especially when a squirrel scampered past the window or the scent of a freshly cooked hamburger drifted from the kitchen. But Elvis was persistent, and he loved Chief more than words could say. This wasn't just about teaching a dog tricks, it was about sharing a part of himself, a passion, with his loyal companion. It was about deepening their bond in the most wonderfully absurd way possible. He stood up, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The sun was dipping lower now, casting long shadows across the living room. "Come on, Chief," Elvis said, patting his leg. "Let's go find us a doojus. Graceland's got plenty of space, right?" Chief, sensing the shift in his human's mood, the renewed energy, bounded towards the door, his tail thumping against the wall with excitement. The adventure had begun. The king was about to embark on his most unusual training regimen yet, with the most unlikely of students. And something told Elvis deep in his heart that this was going to be the most heartwarming, hilarious, and unforgettable journey of them all. The next morning, the Grand Hall of Graceland, usually reserved for receiving guests or impromptu jam sessions, had been transformed. Elvis, brimming with enthusiasm, had cleared a section of the polished floor, pushing back ornate furniture to create an open space. He even laid down a thick, worn rug he found in the attic, declaring it their official Nujimat Chief. Meanwhile, was less impressed with the new setup. He was more interested in the lingering scent of breakfast bacon and the curious way the dust motes danced in the morning sunbeams. He stretched out on the cool marble, his tail giving a lazy thump, thump, thump against the floor. Elvis, however, was in full sensei mode. He had even dug out one of his old martial arts belts, a crisp white belt, the color of a beginner. A humble nod to the journey ahead, he tied it around his silk pajamas just above his hips. "All right, Chief," he announced, clapping his hands together. "First lesson, the ready stance. Musubi dachi," he demonstrated, standing tall, heels together, feet angled out at 45 degrees, hands resting naturally at his sides. He held the pose, trying to radiate. Calm focus. See, Chief? It's about being present, being aware, ready for anything. Chief watched him, his head tilted. He blinked slowly, then let out a soft sigh as if saying, "Oh, here we go." He then rolled onto his back, exposing his belly for a rub. Elvis chuckled, but didn't give in. "No, no, Chief. This isn't belly rub time. This is serious. Karate time. Up, up, boy." He gently nudged Chief with his foot. Reluctantly, Chief rolled over and stood shaking his entire body as if shedding water. He looked at Elvis expectantly, his tail giving a slow, hopeful wag. "Good, now, Musubidachi." Elvis repeated the stance. "Heels together, remember? Like this." He pointed to his own feet. Chief, in an attempt to mimic, brought his back paws together, which only made him look like he was preparing to relieve himself. His front paws remained stubbornly spread apart. "Almost, boy. Almost," Elvis encouraged, trying to keep a straight face. "No, no, the other way. Think of your paws like they're arrows pointing outward." He physically tried to adjust Chief's paws, but the dog just sank down into a reluctant squat. The first 15 minutes were a series of comical failures. Elvis would demonstrate a simple stance, a straight punch, a low block, and Chief would respond with a yawn, a sniff at the floor, or an enthusiastic attempt to lick Elvis's face. "Okay, let's try something simpler," Elvis decided, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "How about a block? When I say block, you just lift a paw, like you're stopping something." He held up his hand as if to ward off an invisible opponent. "Block?" His big brown eyes seemed to be asking, "Is this a trick because I'm not seeing the tree part of this trick?" Elvis sighed, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't quite anticipated this level of canine apathy. He reminded himself of the patience required in martial arts, the persistence. He had to embody the calm, unwavering spirit of a true sensei. "All right, let's try something with motivation," Elvis mused aloud, a mischievous glint returning to his eyes. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned a moment later with a bag of Chief's favorite beef jerky treats. "Okay, Chief," he said, holding up a tempting piece of jerky. "Now, when I say block, you try to put your paw up. If you do it right, you get this." Chief's ears perked up instantly. His tail began to wag, slowly at first, then picking up speed. His focus, which had been wandering like a tumbleweed in a desert wind, suddenly narrowed with laser-like intensity on the treat. "Okay, ready?" Elvis held out his hand, mimicking a strike block. Chief, with surprising speed, lifted his right paw and batted at Elvis's hand, almost knocking the treat away. "Yes, Chief, that's it," Elvis cheered, instantly rewarding him with the jerky. Chief devoured it in one gulp, looking up expectantly for more. "Again, block," Elvis repeated, offering another treat. This time, Chief lifted his left paw a bit clumsily, but it was unmistakably an attempt at blocking. Good boy, Chief." Another treat. They went through half the bag of jerky and Chief actually started to understand the concept of lifting a paw on command. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't precise. But it was progress. Elvis felt a surge of pride, the same kind of feeling he got when he nailed a difficult guitar riff. Now, how about a kick? Elvis pondered, then demonstrated a gentle front kick. You know, like a little push, made jarring. Chief, perhaps overstimulated by the treats, decided to interpret kick as jump. He sprang up barking excitedly and tried to jump on Elvis, his front paws landing on Elvis's chest. Elvis stumbled back, laughing. "Whoa, not quite, Chief. That's more of a king cobra strike, but you've got power, that's for sure." He realized he needed to simplify even further. Instead of complex movements, he needed to find canine equivalents. A stance could be sitting still and focused. A block could be lifting a paw. A kick may be a forceful wag of the tail. The morning passed in a flurry of attempted martial arts, moves and Chief's adorable, often hilarious misinterpretations. Elvis's patience was definitely tested, but his smile never really left his face. This wasn't about perfection. It was about the joy of the attempt, the connection. By lunchtime, Chief was exhausted, collapsed in a furry heap on the dually mat, snoring softly. Elvis, too, felt a pleasant weariness. His body might not have gotten a full workout, but his spirit certainly had. He looked down at Chief, a warmth spreading through his chest. "You're a natural, Chief," Elvis whispered, stroking the dog's head. "A natural at being the best dog a king could ask for." He knew the road to black belt would be long, maybe even impossible for Chief. But the journey itself, filled with laughter and love, was already proving to be more rewarding than any belt could ever signify. He picked up the empty jerky bag, a testament to Chief's training. Tomorrow they would try again, and he had a feeling tomorrow would bring even more adorable failures, and maybe, just maybe, a few more surprising breakthroughs. The scent of honeysuckle and freshly cut grass drifted through the open windows of Graceland, carried on a gentle Memphis breeze. Priscilla, graceful and composed as always, stepped into the sun-drenched living room. She paused, a small, amused smile playing on her lips as she took in the scene before her. Elvis, still in his soap pajamas, was kneeling on the floor, holding a squeaky toy in one hand and a stack of flashcards in the other. Across from him, Chief sat patiently, his tail thumping a soft rhythm against the rug. On the flashcards, Elvis had drawn stick figures performing various karate moves, labeling them with Japanese terms that Priscilla barely understood. "Good morning, my karate master," Priscilla said, her voice soft, a hint of playful teasing in her tone. "And good morning, Chief. How's training coming along?" Elvis looked up, his face breaking into a wide, boyish grin. "Priscilla, you're just in time. Chief here is learning to focus. It's all about concentration. P, like a true warrior." He held up a flashcard depicting a figure in a deep balanced stance. "Okay, Chief. Remember this one. Zenkutsu Dachi, forward stance." Chief, with admirable effort, lowered his front end slightly, almost like he was about to bow again. His hind legs remained stubbornly upright. Priscilla chuckled, walking over and sitting cross-legged beside Elvis. "He looks like he's about to pounce on a very slow squirrel." "Progress, Priscilla. You should have seen him yesterday," Elvis defended, though he couldn't help but laugh along. He thought block meant scratch his ear. He offered Chief a small piece of cheese, the new, more advanced reward. Chief devoured it and looked up with an expectant glint in his eyes. "Why karate, Elvis?" Priscilla asked gently, watching the affectionate interaction between man and dog. "Of all the things you could teach him, why martial arts?" Elvis paused, looking at Chief, who was now resting his head on Elvis's knee, gazing up at him with utter devotion. He ran a hand over the dog's soft fur. "Well, for starters, it's fun," Elvis began, his voice taking on a thoughtful tone. "And Chief loves doing things with me. He's always so eager, you know." He sighed softly, a more serious expression settling on his face. "But it's more than that, P karate. It's about discipline, about control, about finding your center, even when everything around you is spinning out of control." He looked up, his blue eyes meeting hers. "My life, it can be pretty chaotic sometimes. The crowds, the demands, the constant travel. It's a lot, and sometimes I just feel unmoored." Priscilla reached out and gently squeezed his hand. She understood. She lived that life alongside him, experiencing the pressures and the unique isolation that fame could bring. "When I practice karate, it grounds me," Elvis continued. "It's just me and the movements. No noise. No expectations. With Chief, it's Chief Denkin do." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that rarely made it onto the stage. "And honestly, P, is just pure joy. Look at him. He's happy. I'm happy. We're doing something together that's unique to us. Who else has a karate dog?" Priscilla looked at Chief, who had closed his eyes, clearly enjoying the gentle strokes of Elvis's hand. She could see the genuine affection, the profound bond between them. It wasn't about the karate at all, not really. It was about love. It was about Elvis finding a simple, pure connection in a world that often made things incredibly complicated. "I think it's wonderful, Elvis," she said, her voice warm with sincerity. "He's lucky to have you, and you're lucky to have him." Just then, the door creaked open, and a tiny figure with bright, inquisitive eyes peeked into the room. It was Lisa, Marie Elvis, and Priscilla's young daughter, clutching a well-loved teddy bear. "Daddy, what are you doing with Chief?" she asked, her voice small and curious. Elvis's face lit up even more, if that were possible. "Lisa Bug, come on in, sweetheart. We're practicing karate. Chief is learning to be a martial arts master." "Lisa," Marie's eyes widened. "Really? Can Chief kick? But he can block, and he can hold a stance, sort of. Come here, I'll show you." He demonstrated a low block, then tried to coax Chief into lifting his paw. Chief, ever eager to please the little one, lifted a paw with surprising alacrity, looking from Elvis to Lisa Marie for approval. Lisa Marie giggled, clapping her tiny hands. "Good Chief. He's a karate doggy." Priscilla watched the three of them. Elvis so animated and full of life, Lisa Marie utterly captivated, and Chief basking in the attention, his tail thumping contentedly. This was Elvis, stripped of the layers of fame and expectation. This was Elvis, the loving father, the devoted husband, the silly, adoring dog owner. "Maybe he could even protect us from the squirrels outside," Lisa Marie suggested seriously, pointing towards the window where a bushy-tailed squirrel was scampering up an oak tree. Elvis threw his head back and laughed a deep, joyful sound. "You know what, Lisa Bug? I think he just might. He's got the spirit of a true protector, that's for sure." As the morning continued, Priscilla stayed and watched, offering encouraging words and even helping Elvis invent new moves for Chief, like the treat-seeking strike and the nap-time block. The atmosphere was light, filled with laughter, and the undeniable warmth of a family simply enjoying each other's presence. Priscilla knew that Elvis often felt the weight of his celebrity, the constant need to be Elvis Presley the King. But here in his home, with his family and his loyal dog, he was just Elvis. And in those moments, teaching Chief something as wonderfully silly as karate, he found a peace and a joy that even the biggest concerts couldn't provide. It was a unique, quiet magic unfolding right there in the living room of Graceland, and Priscilla wouldn't have traded it for anything. Days turned into a week, then two. The mate in the Graceland living room became a permanent fixture, a silent testament to Elvis's unwavering dedication and Chief's surprisingly resilient patience. The early fumbles and comical failures slowly began to give way to something that resembled, however loosely, progress. Elvis had adjusted his teaching methods. He realized that abstract concepts like focus and discipline were lost on Chief. Instead, he focused on associating specific actions with commands and, of course, generous rewards. The beef jerky was gone, replaced by even higher value treats, tiny bits of cooked chicken and cheese. "Okay, Chief, ready stance," Elvis commanded, adopting his Musuti Dachi again. He held a piece of chicken tantalizingly close to Chief's nose. Chief, now associating ready stance with standing still and looking at Elvis, would pause his wiggling. He wouldn't quite put his heels together, but he would stand with his paws mostly aligned, his tail giving only a minimal excited twitch. "Yes, that's it, boy," Elvis praised, immediately giving him the treat. "Good focus. You're a natural, Chief." The dog's eyes would light up, his tail starting to flack the floor in anticipation. He was learning that staying still rather than jumping or barking earned him a delicious reward. It wasn't exactly martial arts discipline, but it was a step in that direction. The block command had evolved too. Instead of just lifting a paw, Elvis would gently push his hand towards Chief's snout, and Chief would, with increasing consistency, raise a paw to intercept it. A soft, deliberate touch. It was more of a paw push than a block, but it looked remarkably like a defensive maneuver. "Excellent, Chief. You block," Elvis would exclaim, beaming with pride as he handed over another chicken morsel. The real breakthrough came with the kick. Elvis had struggled with this one, Chief's nat kick. But then Elvis remembered how Chief sometimes playfully nudged things with his nose, or pawed at toys. He started placing a soft, lightweight cushion on the floor. "Okay, Chief, kick," he would command, gently tapping the cushion with his foot. Chief would sniff the cushion, then tentatively nudge it with his nose. "No, no, Chief, like this. Push it with your paw," Elvis demonstrated, tapping it again. One afternoon, in a burst of playful energy, Chief didn't just nudge it. He gave a firm, enthusiastic push with his front paw, sending the cushion sliding a foot or two across the polished floor. "Whoa, Chief, that's made Jerry a front kick," Elvis shouted, absolutely thrilled. He showered Chief with praise and a generous handful of chicken bits. From then on, Chief understood. He associated kick with pushing the cushion. He wasn't kicking with his hind legs like a human martial artist, but he was certainly moving an object with intent and force. It was canine ingenuity meeting human instruction, and the results were adorable. Another surprising development was Chief's newfound bow. Elvis had always ended his karate sessions with a deep, respectful bow. Chief, seeing this repeated gesture, started to mimic it. When Elvis bowed, Chief would lower his head, front paws stretched out, and let out a soft, almost reverent woof. It wasn't a formal bow, but it was a clear signal of respect and understanding. Elvis called it the sensi bow. The staff at Graceland had gotten used to the peculiar sounds emanating from the living room. Elvis's enthusiastic commands, the occasional thud of a cushion, and Chief's happy barks. They would often peek in their faces, splitting into smiles at the sight of the king of rock and roll patiently, lovingly teaching his dog what vaguely resembled martial arts. One afternoon, while Elvis was demonstrating a series of rapid punches, Kizanizuki, Chief, instead of performing a block, lay down on his back and started wiggling, exposing his belly. Elvis paused, a fond smile spreading across his face. Okay, Chief. I get it. Break time, huh?" He knelt down and gave Chief a thorough belly rub, listening to the dog's happy grunts. It wasn't always perfect. Sometimes, Chief would get distracted by a fly buzzing near the window, or the distant sound of the mail truck. Sometimes he'd just decide he was done, collapsing into a heap mid-session. But Elvis never got truly frustrated. He understood Chief was a dog, not a human, and the small breakthroughs, the moments of connection and understanding, were infinitely more valuable than any perfectly executed kick. "You know, Chief," Elvis murmured, scratching behind his ears, "you might not be ready for the Olympics, but you're teaching me more than I'm teaching you. About patience, about joy in the little things, about just being present." Chief responded with a wet lick to Elvis's chin, a silent promise of loyalty, and continued, albeit clumsy. Effort. Elvis truly felt it. These karate sessions, as unconventional as they were, had become a sacred ritual. They were a time when he could shed the weight of his public persona and just be Elvis, the man who found pure delight in teaching his best friend to karate chop, a cushion. And as he looked at Chief stretched out contentedly on the doji mat, Elvis knew that these small breakthroughs weren't just about training. They were about the growing, unbreakable bond between a king and his remarkably spirited canine companion. The journey was unfolding, and it was filled with more heart than any championship. Elvis's enthusiasm for Chief's karate training continued to grow, fueled by the small but consistent progress they were making. He decided their doo-doos needed to be more official. The living room, while spacious, was a bit too casual, too prone to interruptions from curious visitors or the general hustle and bustle of Graceland. He found the perfect spot in the sprawling basement, a large unused recreation room that had once held a pool table. It was cool, quiet, and offered plenty of open space. With the help of his trusted groundskeeper, who was more amused and surprised by Elvis's latest venture, the room was transformed. The old pool table was moved to storage. The walls were painted a calming cream color. Elvis even hung a framed, faded photo of himself in a G mid-kick on one wall, declaring it the dojo master's inspiration. He swapped out the worn rug from the living room for a larger, thicker mat he ordered specially, something more akin to what he'd seen in professional dokos. It was a soft, dark green, perfect for Chief's paws. "This Chief," Elvis announced dramatically, gesturing around the newly appointed space, "is our official training ground, our dojo. It's where we'll forge our minds, our bodies, and our unbreakable bond." Chief, after a thorough sniff of every corner of the new room, seemed to approve. He did a happy little trot around the perimeter, his tail wagging furiously, before settling down on the new mat, looking up at Elvis with bright, expectant eyes. Elvis had also, in a moment of pure inspiration, decided Chief needed a uniform. He'd commissioned a seamstress in Memphis to craft a tiny guy, a miniature version of his own white karate uniform. It was perfectly tailored, with little holes for Chief's legs and a small padded collar for comfort. It even had a tiny white belt, just like a beginner's. "All right, sensei," Chief Elvis said, carefully fastening the G around the dog. Chief endured the dressing process with surprising patience, perhaps sensing the importance of the occasion. Once it was on, he looked utterly ridiculous and impossibly adorable. A furry, four-legged martial artist, ready for battle. Elvis couldn't help but laugh, a deep, booming laugh that echoed in the spacious room. He pulled out his camera and snapped several pictures of Chief striking his best ready stance, which still mostly involved standing still and looking intently at the treat in Elvis's hand. News of Elvis's carrot dog quickly spread through Graceland. The household staff, from the cooks to the security guards, would occasionally drop by the basement. Muju, drawn by curiosity and the sound of Elvis's enthusiastic shouts of "Hoo-yah!" or "block." Charlie Hodge, Elvis's longtime friend and confidant, often showed up with a cup of coffee, leaning against the doorframe, a perpetual smile on his face. "So Elvis, Chief gonna be teaching classes soon," Charlie quipped one afternoon, watching Chief enthusiastically kick the cushion across the room. "He's got the spirit, Charlie, that's for sure," Elvis replied, beaming as he rewarded Chief with a piece of chicken. "It's all about channeling that energy. Chief's got more raw power than any black belt I know." Red West and Sonny West, two members of Elvis's security detail and longtime friends, also came down one day in treat. They were both trained in martial arts themselves, having practiced with Elvis for years. "All right, King, let's see what the pup's got," Red challenged, folding his arms. Elvis, eager to show off, put Chief through his paces. "Chief, ready stance." Chief stood relatively still. "Block." Chief lifted a paw. "Kick." Chief pushed the cushion. Red and Sonny watched, a mixture of amusement and genuine admiration on their faces. It wasn't the precision of a human, of course, but for a dog it was remarkable. More than that, they saw the profound connection between Elvis and Chief, the obvious joy it brought them both. "He's a natural, Elvis," Sonny said, a slight chuckle in his voice. "He's got that Presley stage presence, that's for sure." Elvis swelled with pride. "He does, doesn't he? It's like he knows when he's performing." The dojo became a sanctuary for Elvis, a place where he could escape the pressures of his career and simply be with his beloved dog. The sessions were rarely just about karate anymore. They were about play, about connection, about moments of quiet understanding. Elvis would often just sit on the mat, Chief, curled up beside him, talking to the dog about his day, about his thoughts, about anything and everything. Chief would listen, his head cocked, his steady gaze offering silent, unwavering support. One evening, after a particularly draining day of meetings and phone calls about upcoming tours, Elvis found himself walking down to the basement Muju. He didn't even plan to train. He just wanted to be there. He turned on the lights, and Chief, who seemed to sense his arrival even from the floor above, came trotting down the stairs, looking up at him expectantly. Elvis sat on the mat, and Chief immediately lay down beside him, nudging his hand for a gentle pet. Elvis leaned back against the cool wall, Chief's soft fur a comforting presence against his side. "Rough day, boy," Elvis murmured, stroking Chief's head. "Lots of noise." Chief sighed a deep, contented sigh and rested his head on Elvis's thigh. In the quiet of their dojo, away from the world, Elvis felt a familiar sense of calm wash over him. It wasn't the calm of perfect martial arts movements, but the profound peace that came from unconditional love and companionship. The dojos wasn't just a place for karate. It was their sanctuary, their special place, built on love and shared joy. And in that moment, Elvis knew that Chief in his tiny gi was truly his greatest sensei. Life at Graceland settled into a comfortable rhythm, punctuated by the regular sounds of Elvis and Chief's karate, sessions in the basement Muj. Chief's karate was still more charm than precision, but his responsiveness to Elvis's commands was undeniable. He could reliably perform his ready stance, his paw block, and his enthusiastic cushion kick. One sunny afternoon, a new arrival disrupted the peaceful routine. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, had brought home a new puppy from a friend's farm. A scruffy, energetic terrier, mix all boundless energy and yappy barks named Rascal. Rascal was, to put it mildly, a handful. He was curious, mischievous, and possessed a seemingly endless supply of puppy energy, and he was particularly fascinated by Chief. From the moment Rascal arrived, he considered Chief his personal giant plaything. He would nip at Chief's tail, pounce on his paws, and generally make a nuisance of himself, all in the spirit of playful exuberance. Chief, ever the gentle giant, mostly tolerated Rascal's antics with a long-suffering sigh, occasionally giving a low rumble as a warning. But one day Rascal crossed a line. Elvis and Chief were in the dojos. Elvis was guiding Chief through a series of blocks, Chief skillfully batting away Elvis's gently offered hand. They were in a groove, a perfect flow of man and dog. Suddenly, a blur of scruffy fur shot into the dojo. It was Rascal, who had managed to slip past the open door. He immediately spotted the soft green mat and, more importantly, the enticingly movable cushion that Chief used for his kicks. With a yelp of pure puppy glee, Rascal pounced on the cushion, shaking it violently, tearing at it with his sharp little teeth. Chief, who had been focused intently on Elvis, turned his head. His eyes, usually soft and gentle, narrowed slightly. That was his cushion, that was his training equipment. Elvis, initially amused, quickly realized Rascal was genuinely tearing at the cushion. "Hey, Rascal, no. Leave that alone." But Rascal was too absorbed in his destructive play. He growled playfully, ripping a corner of the cushion. Chief let out a low, guttural growl, a sound Elvis rarely heard from him. It was a warning, a sound that spoke of a deep-seated protectiveness. Rascal, oblivious, tugged harder. Suddenly something shifted in Chief. It was as if all the discipline and focus Elvis had been trying to instill had clicked into place, but in a uniquely canine way. "Chief, block." Elvis instinctively commanded, not even sure why. Chief, instead of lifting a paw at Elvis, looked at Rascal. With a surprisingly swift movement, he positioned himself between Rascal and the now damaged cushion. He didn't growl or bark aggressively. Instead, he lowered his head slightly, and then, with a powerful sweep of his front paw, he pushed Rascal away from the cushion. It wasn't a kick, not in the human sense, but it was a precise, controlled push enough to make Rascal tumble backward, yelping in surprise. Rascal landed on his rear, looking utterly bewildered by this unexpected turn of events. Chief stood over the cushion, his posture firm, almost a guarding stance. He looked from Rascal to Elvis as if to say, Problem solved. Sensei, Elvis stood there, momentarily stunned. Chief hadn't just reacted, he had acted. He had used a learned movement, the kick or push. Not out of aggression, but out of a protective instinct for his training tool, his space, and perhaps for the harmony of their dojo. Chief, good boy, very good boy, Elvis exclaimed, kneeling down to hug the dog. That was incredible, boy. You defended your territory, you used your skills. Rascal, shaken, but not truly hurt, quickly recovered, and perhaps sensing Chief's serious demeanor, decided to retreat. He scurried out of the dojo, leaving Chief standing triumphantly over his salvaged cushion. Elvis knew it wasn't a classic martial arts confrontation. Chief hadn't performed a perfect block or a precise strike, but he had used the essence of what Elvis had been teaching him: focused movement, controlled action, and protection. He had taken a learned behavior and adapted it to a real-life situation. This incident deepened Elvis's respect for Chief even further. It wasn't just about fun and games anymore. It showed that Chief was truly intelligent, truly capable of learning and applying what he learned. And it showed his innate loyalty and protectiveness. "You're not just a karate dog, Chief," Elvis murmured, stroking Chief's head. "You're a guardian, my guardian." Chief responded with a soft whine and a gentle lick to Elvis's hand, his tail giving a slow, proud wag. The small tear in the cushion was a battle scar, a badge of honor for Chief's first karate challenge. From that day forward, Elvis saw Chief's training in a new light. It wasn't just a quirky hobby. It was a journey of mutual growth, of unexpected discoveries. Chief might not ever become a black belt, but he was certainly proving to be a master of heart, loyalty, and surprising strength when it mattered most. And for Elvis, that was more than enough. The encounter with Rascal had been a pivotal moment. It showed Elvis that Chief wasn't just mimicking movements for treats. He was internalizing concepts in his own doggy way. Elvis realized he needed to adapt his teaching to merge the principles of karate with Chief's natural instincts. "Okay, Chief," Elvis announced one morning in the dojo, holding a small soft ball. "Today we're going to work on speed and evasion. Think like a fox, quick and agile." Toss the ball gently, then quickly try to block Chief's path as the dog went for it. Chief, with surprising agility, dodged Elvis's leg, swerving around him to snatch the ball. "Yes, Chief, that's it," Elvis cheered, praising him. "See, that's your natural evasive maneuver. We'll call it Inu Nagashi, the dog flow." He started incorporating more of Chief's natural behaviors into their karate. Instead of forcing stiff human stances, Elvis observed Chief's natural resting positions, his playful lunges, his protective instincts. For example, Chief's natural ready stance evolved from a clumsy imitation of Elvis's musubi dachi to a calm, alert sit, eyes fixed on Elvis, body poised for action. Elvis renamed it Seiza Inu, the sitting dog. It was Chief's version of a centered, focused posture. And it was perfect. Their blocks became more fluid. When Elvis playfully tossed a soft toy towards Chief, instead of just lifting a paw, Chief would subtly lean into the toy, redirecting its path with a gentle nudge of his nose or shoulder. "Chief, ukmawashi, circular block," Elvis would exclaim, delighted by the dog's intuitive movements. He saw it not as a failure to do a human block, but as Chief's superior canine adaptation. The kick, which was Chief's powerful paw push of the cushion, also found new applications. Elvis started placing light objects like plastic cups or empty cardboard boxes at a distance. "Chief, maigeri," Elvis would command, pointing to the object. Chief would then trot over and give a decisive paw push, sending the object skittering across the floor. It was incredible to watch. He wasn't just playing. He was performing a task with focus and intent, using his strength. Elvis also noticed Chief's acute hearing. He started incorporating sound into their training. He'd clap his hands sharply or make a sudden low growl, and Chief would immediately snap to attention, his ears swiveling. Elvis called this Kiko listening block. It wasn't a physical block, but a mental one, a moment of immediate alertness. Their sessions in the basement Nuju became less about rigid instruction and more about playful exploration. Elvis would experiment, Chief would adapt, and together they would discover new ways for Chief to express his unique karat. One afternoon, Elvis was feeling particularly stressed. A record company executive had called with a demanding request, and the pressures of his career felt heavier than usual. He went down to the dojo, not with the intention of training, but just to sit in the quiet. Chief, sensing Elvis's mood, immediately came over and nudged his hand. Elvis sat on the mat and Chief placed his head on Elvis's lap, looking up with those soulful, understanding eyes. "Rough day, boy," Elvis murmured, stroking Chief's head. "Lots of noise in my head. Can't seem to find my center." Chief whimpered softly. Then, as if on cue, he lifted his head, looked towards the dojo master's inspiration photo of Elvis on the wall, and then back at Elvis. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he performed his sensei bow, lowering his head and front paws. Elvis's breath hitched. Chief wasn't just performing a trick. He was offering comfort. He was reminding Elvis of the calm they found together in the dojo, the discipline of mind that karate represented. "You're right," Chief Elvis said, a watery smile spreading across his face. "You're absolutely right." Took a deep breath, and as he exhaled, some of the tension began to melt away. He reached down and gently scratched Chief behind the ears. "Okay, Sensei Chief, let's do some Inu Nagashi. Clear my mind, boy." They spent the next hour simply moving, playing, practicing their adapted forms. Chief's focused Seiza Inu, his powerful Megari on the cushion, his intuitive Uk Mawashi against tossed toys. Elvis didn't instruct much. He just observed, marveling at how Chief used his instincts, refined by their playful training. These sessions weren't about creating a human martial artist out of a dog. They were about building a deeper understanding, a unique bond where Chief was not just a student, but a teacher in his own right, reminding Elvis of the simple joys, the power of presence, and the unspoken language of love. Elvis adapted to Chief, Chief adapted to Elvis. And in that mutual adaptation, their canine karate became something truly special. Elvis, bubbling with excitement, decided it was time to showcase Chief's unique talents. He envisioned a small, intimate demonstration for Priscilla and Lisa Marie. It wasn't about impressing anyone, but about sharing the joy and pride he felt in Chief's progress. "We're gonna have a show, Chief," Elvis announced one morning as he put Chief's miniature gi on. Chief seemed to understand the excitement in Elvis's voice, his tail wagging with extra vigor. "A special performance just from Mama and Lisa Bug." Tidied the dojo, making sure the mat was perfectly aligned and the training cushion was clean. He even set up a small folding chair for Priscilla and a colorful beanbag for Lisa Marie. That afternoon, Priscilla and Lisa Marie came down to the basement, their eyes wide with anticipation. Lisa Marie clutched her teddy bear, her gaze fixed on Chief, who looked particularly regal in his tiny white gi. "Welcome, welcome," Elvis proclaimed with a flourish, bowing deeply, "to the Graceland Canine Karate demonstration. Tonight you will witness the incredible agility, focus, and spirit of my very own black belt in training, Chief." Priscilla chuckled. "Sensei Elvis, go Chief," Lisa Marie squealed, clapping her hands. Chief, basking in the attention, gave a happy bark as if to say, "Let the show begin." Elvis began with an introduction. "First, we have the Seiza Inu, the focused sitting stance," he commanded. "Chief." Seiza Inu. Chief, surprisingly, performed it perfectly. He sat down, paws neatly tucked, eyes fixed on Elvis, an almost solemn expression on his face. He held it for a full 5 seconds before looking expectant for his treats, giving him a piece of chicken. Perfect focus, isn't he? Priscilla and Lisa Marie applauded. Next, the fundamental ook, the block. Elvis demonstrated with his hand. Chief, ook. Elvis offered his hand gently. Chief, with a smooth, almost elegant motion, lifted his paw and gently pushed Elvis's hand away. He did it several times, varying the paw he used, each time earning praise and a treat. "Wow, Daddy, he's really good," Lisa Marie exclaimed, bouncing on her beanbag. "He certainly is, sweetheart," Priscilla agreed, a genuine smile on her face. Then came the crowd pleaser, the maid Jerry, the front kick. Elvis placed the cushion a few feet away. "Chief, Maid Gary." Chief trotted over to the cushion, sniffed it once, then gave it a powerful, deliberate paw push, sending it skittering towards the far wall. Lisa Marie shrieked with delight. He kicked it so far. Priscilla laughed, clapping louder. "That was excellent, Chief." Elvis beamed. "And now, for a very special, highly advanced technique. The Inu Nagashi, the dog glow, a speed and evasion drill." He tossed a soft, squeaky ball, then tried to playfully block Chief's path. "Chief," Elvis said, his voice softer. "Now, come." Chief immediately trotted over. As he approached, Elvis dropped to one knee and bowed his head respectfully. And Chief, without a single command, without a single treat offered beforehand, mirrored the gesture. He lowered his head, front paws stretched out, and let out a soft, almost reverent woof. It was his sensibo. A profound silence filled the tuju. Priscilla gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. Lisa Marie, usually full of wiggles, was completely still, her eyes wide with wonder. It wasn't a trick. It was a moment of pure, unspoken understanding, a gesture of mutual respect that transcended language. It was Chief acknowledging Elvis, not just as his owner, but as his companion, his teacher, and his friend. Elvis looked up, tears misting his eyes. He wrapped his arms around Chief, burying his face in the dog's fur. "Good boy, Chief. My very best boy." Priscilla was on her feet, walking over, her own eyes glistening. She knelt beside Elvis, putting an arm around his shoulder. "Elvis, that was truly beautiful." Lisa Marie rushed over, throwing her small arms around Chief's neck. "Chief is the best karate dog ever." The demonstration wasn't about flashy moves or perfect technique. It was about love, patience, and the incredible bond between a human and his dog. It was about the magic that could happen when you opened your heart to an absurd, wonderful idea. Elvis knew in that moment that these karate lessons were the most valuable training he'd ever undertaken. They weren't just for Chief, they were for him too, a constant reminder of the pure, simple joys that truly mattered in life. Life at Graceland continued its joyful, peculiar rhythm, with the basement Nujus serving as a constant source of amusement and quiet peace. Elvis and Chief's karate sessions were now less about strict training and more about shared play, a dance of mutual understanding. The demonstration had been a huge success, solidifying Chief's status as a beloved, albeit unofficial, martial arts master. One sweltering summer afternoon, the air conditioning at Graceland decided to stage a rebellion. The large, historic house grew uncomfortably warm, and the staff worked to get it fixed. In the meantime, windows and doors were open to let in any circulating breeze. Elvis was in the living room trying to read a script, but the heat made it hard to focus. Chief was sprawled beside him, panting softly. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. It wasn't the sound of a dropped dish, but something heavier, more chaotic. Elvis and Chief both snapped to attention. "What in the world was that?" Elvis muttered, pushing himself up. Chief, his ears perked, let out a low, questioning growl, looking towards the kitchen. They hurried to the kitchen. The scene that greeted them was, to say the least, surprising. A large, very determined raccoon had found its way through an open kitchen window. It was currently on the counter, attempting to make off with a freshly baked apple pie that had been cooling. Pie dish was tilted precariously, and pie filling was splattered across the counter. Kitchen staff, who had been trying to fix the faulty air conditioning, were now in a comical standoff with the raccoon. They were shouting, waving their arms, trying to shoo it away, but the raccoon, emboldened by its sugary prize, was holding its ground, hissing and baring its teeth. "Get out of here, you critter!" yelled one of the cooks, wielding a dish towel like a lasso. The raccoon, however, was undeterred. It grabbed a chunk of pie, its beady eyes darting nervously around the room. Elvis, seeing the chaos, quickly assessed the situation. He didn't want anyone to get hurt, especially not the raccoon. But the kitchen was a mess, and the pie was doomed. Chief, meanwhile, was bristling. This was an intruder. This creature was disrupting his home. All his instincts, sharpened by their karate training, flared. "Chief, Kikoi Yuk," Elvis commanded, his voice firm, recalling their listening block drill. Chief immediately snapped his attention to Elvis, his body tensing, waiting for the next instruction. The raccoon, startled by the new voices, froze, one paw still clutching a gooey piece of pie. "Chief, Seiza Inu focus," Elvis said, pointing at the raccoon. Chief immediately sat his posture alert, his gaze unwavering on the furried bandit. It was his most focused stance, a silent, powerful warning. The raccoon, perhaps sensing the shift in the atmosphere, the sudden quiet intensity of the large golden retriever, hesitated. "Chief, my Gary push," Elvis commanded, pointing towards the raccoon, and then making a pushing motion with his hand. Chief didn't hesitate. He wasn't aggressive, not snarling or barking. Instead, with a fluid, controlled motion that Elvis had worked so hard to refine during their kick training, Chief took 2 swift steps forward and, with a powerful, deliberate paw, push connected with the kitchen counter right next to the raccoon. It wasn't a direct hit on the raccoon, but the force of the push made the counter vibrate, causing the raccoon to lose its footing. Pie dish clattered, and the raccoon, startled, dropped its stolen pastry. Seeing its chance, Elvis quickly clapped his hands sharply, a sound he used to get Chief's instant attention. "Chief, Inu Nagashi, evade." The raccoon, now thoroughly unnerved by the sudden noise and the dog's controlled attack, scrambled off the counter, darted across the floor, and bolted out the open window as quickly as it had come in. Silence descended on the kitchen, broken only by the panting of Chief and the relieved sighs of the staff. Elvis looked at Chief, his eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and immense pride. Chief hadn't chased, hadn't bitten. He had used his learned karate moves, the focus, the strategic push, to deter the intruder without harm. It was canine martial arts at its finest, Chief. "You did it, boy," Elvis exclaimed, kneeling down to give him a celebratory hug. "You're a true protector, a karate hero." Chief, wagging his tail, furiously licked Elvis's face, clearly thrilled with his success. The kitchen staff crowded around, marveling. "Well, I'll be," said the cook, wiping a pie-stained hand on his apron. "Never thought I'd see a dog use karate to scare off a raccoon." "He truly is the king's dog," another staff member chuckled. Elvis felt a surge of warmth and joy. This wasn't about fame or fortune. This was about a special, unique bond, about the surprising capabilities of his best friend. Chief hadn't just protected the pie. He had reaffirmed the deep, unwavering connection they shared. A connection built on love, patience, and a little bit of canine karate. It was the most heartwarming, unexpected show Chief had ever put on. The raccoon incident became a legend at Graceland. Chief and his miniature G became even more of a celebrity within the mansion walls. Elvis proudly recounted the story to anyone who would listen, always emphasizing Chief's calm demeanor and precise karate moves. But the kare lessons themselves began to shift. The formal commands and structured drills slowly faded, replaced by something more organic, more innate. The dojo in the basement remained their special place, but it was no longer just for training. It was for quiet reflection, for play, for simply being together. Elvis would often go down to the dojo, Chief invariably trailing after him. He'd sit on the soft mat and Chief would curl up beside him a comforting weight. Sometimes Elvis would hum a new melody or practice a guitar riff, and Chief would just listen, his presence a calming anchor. The karate was still there, but it had evolved into a shared language of movement and understanding. When Elvis raised his hand, Chief would still instinctively lift a paw in a soft block. When Elvis pointed to a toy across the room, Chief would give it a decisive kick with his paw, sending it sliding. Their sensi bo became a cherished ritual of mutual respect, a daily affirmation of their bond. These moments became incredibly precious to Elvis. In a world of constant demands and public scrutiny, Chief offered unconditional love, unwavering loyalty, and a simple, pure joy that no amount of fame could buy. Karate lessons, initially a whimsical idea, had become a profound avenue for connection. Elvis often thought about how much Chief had taught him. Patience, certainly, the ability to find joy in the smallest victories. The understanding that true strength wasn't just about physical power, but about focus, discipline, and the quiet confidence to protect what you love. One evening, Elvis was sitting on the dojo's, Matt Chief's head in his lap. He gently stroked the dog's golden fur, feeling the steady thump of his heart. The dojo was dimly lit, casting long, peaceful shadows. "You know, Chief," Elvis whispered, "people always say I'm the king, but you, boy, you're the true king of this house. You keep me grounded, you keep me honest, and you definitely keep me laughing." Chief responded with a soft whine and a gentle nudge of his nose against Elvis's hand. "That raccoon," Elvis chuckled softly. "You didn't hurt him, did you? Just showed him who was boss. That's real power, Chief. Knowing when to be gentle, knowing when to just make your presence felt." The miniature G, once a daily uniform, was now carefully folded and placed on a shelf in the dojo, a treasured memento. Chief wore it for special occasions, like when Lisa Marie had a friend over and wanted to show off Elvis's karate dog. But most days Chief was just Chief, a happy, loving golden retriever, a dog who understood his human better than anyone. The karate had never been about Chief becoming a martial arts master in the human sense. It was about the journey, the shared experience, the unique way. It deepened the connection between a man and his dog. It was about Elvis finding an outlet for his playful spirit and his deep need for genuine connection away from the spotlight. The story of Elvis teaching his dog karate wasn't just a quirky anecdote. It was a testament to the power of love, patience, and the beautiful, often unexpected ways we find to connect with those we cherish most. Chief wasn't just Elvis's dog. He was his confidant, his shadow, his silent sensei. And Elvis, in turn, was Chief's loving companion, his devoted student, and his king. As Elvis sat there, Chief's warmth radiating against him, he felt a profound sense of peace. The world outside Graceland could be loud and demanding, but here in their dojo, with his beloved Chief by his side, everything was just right. Their canine karate journey wasn't about achieving a black belt. It was about the endless, heartwarming journey of a love that was truly limitless, and that Elvis knew was the greatest legacy of all.